Okay, so let's kick it off, everyone. We are live right now on LinkedIn. So, hi, everyone. My name is Zsofi Borsi, and I'm leading community engagement at XRPL Commons. And we have this series called the XRPL Lounge, which is a monthly discussion series bringing you different topics from the XRPL ecosystem and also providing a deeper insight into the work of XRPL Commons itself, together with our community members. So, this is the first time we are doing this discussion on LinkedIn. And we're super excited to kick it off together with a group of researchers and educators. So, the topic of today's discussion is research on the XRP Ledger. And why did we choose this topic? It's because we have the Blockchain Research Summit coming up next week, hosted in Paris at our HQ at XRPL Commons. And we thought to invite some of the key speakers from the summit to give you a little sneak peek and teaser to what's coming next week. And Vera here, who is our education director at XRPL Commons, she will also share a lot more about what is this summit and why you should attend. So I'm not going to spoil that right now too much. But I just want to say it's going to be an amazing 2-day event focusing on the latest blockchain developments, research initiatives, but also the European regulatory framework and perspectives. And more than that, also the practical aspects of teaching blockchain. So if you're a researcher, academic, educator, or simply interested in kind of like the regulatory and broader aspects of blockchain research, then you should definitely attend our event next week. And the goal of today's discussion, together with research assistant at Trinity College Dublin, Atharva, and Vito, who is a senior software engineer at Ripple and also a researcher with a PhD from the University of Luxembourg, if I'm correct. The goal together is to dive deeper into some of the topics of being a researcher, doing core development on the XRP Ledger, and sharing these perspectives. So I'm not gonna steal more of the time with this intro, and let's kick it off with Vera. Hi, Vera. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Zsofi, Vito, Atharva, and everyone listening to us. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
So I think a lot of people who might be listening to this broadcast already are familiar with your face or have met you in person since you're leading education at XRPL Commons. So you're really kind of like the key face that everyone knows when it comes to education and XRPL. So instead of like just asking you to introduce yourself, I was wondering if you can explain to us a bit like what has been your insights having met so many people in this field, and if there's maybe one thing that people get wrong about blockchain research in your idea.
Yeah, wow, that's a very good question. One on which I can spend probably hours talking about, because throughout these 3 years, there were a lot of aha moments and a lot of challenges with all the different collaborators with whom I worked, which we, thanks God, managed to overcome. I would say that one of the main misconceptions that I can highlight actually comes in two flavors. First, there is this idea that blockchain research is as fast as the technology in itself, the transaction in a couple of seconds. But actually, blockchain research is like any other research. It's slow, it's rigorous, it's about asking difficult questions that do not have easy answers. So the people who thrive in the field are genuinely curious actually about a lot of different underlying issues, such as trust, decentralization, privacy, or governance. And of course, that takes time to get resolved, right? And that leads me to the next and to straight to the second misconception, which is that it's only for people who are in the finance industry. And actually, some of our most important or most common researchers come from very different backgrounds, from computer science, law, political science, even philosophy sometimes. And actually, while we have all these different backgrounds put together, that when things really move forward and where we can resolve some of the most striking issues that our society is facing currently, such as transparency, digital identity, access to different voting infrastructures, and others. So I would say the blockchain research is intellectually stimulating and extremely diverse field. So those who are interested in building and living and creating a greater social impact, they should definitely join us, no matter what their background is.
Amazing. And yeah, I really want to just maybe in a sentence dive deeper into your point about this misconception that blockchain is only for finance people, or when it comes to blockchain education, it only considers certain areas such as computer science or financial background. So can you give us a concrete example maybe of a course that you developed or that you helped out with? And if there was any kind of like concrete experiences from there, from maybe the creative industry.
Well, I think the surprise there stands both within the students and the professors at the beginning, because they come with different preconditions and expectations, and then when they get into the course, there's always this first moment where they're a little bit disoriented and think they will have to study one type of coding experience, and they find themselves in the intersection of cryptography, mathematics, computer science, and others. And I would say that before I give maybe a more concrete example, one of the greatest barriers that students but also professors finding at the beginning and have in front of themselves is the fact that the learning path is still being written. There is no one clear curriculum. There is no one manual that everyone follows. The field has been largely developed by a small community of enthusiastic, brilliant people who figure things out, and they went along with that. But this brilliant community is not necessarily the one, they're not necessarily the educators who will go across the ecosystem and spread that knowledge. Actually, we have to be aware of that, and that's why a lot of our work at Commons is also to provide necessary resources to the professors in order to increase the curriculum around this technology and create this co-create this curriculum in itself. And that could be sometimes very lonely path. It could be actually very challenging for them. But those who step this learning curve forward, they're the ones who really manage to succeed. And I would say that this is extremely important. Yes, we do have courses both in the art, both for accountants, for lawyers. We do try to work with both tech and non-tech backgrounds, and because, as I said, the magic actually really happens when there is this intersection between the multidisciplinary actors within the ecosystem. But it's a challenging and I'm a process, and I'm totally aware that the resources and our responsibility today is to create the learning journey that will encourage more people to join us, and that's where we will achieve the best results, I would say.
Thank you, Vera. And yeah, I definitely see your point also about this division between maybe the field, like the people who are focusing on education and research versus the people developing the technology. And I think a lot of the work you do here, from my perspective, is really kind of like trying to bridge this gap and bringing together those communities. So, would you say that maybe the blockchain summit, blockchain research summit, is also going to be an occasion for that? And yeah, can you tell us more, like why you decided to create this summit?
Sure. Well, my major objective, at least that's how I perceive my role as an education director at XRPL Commons, is really to be able to democratize knowledge around blockchain education. And to do that meaningfully, we've built very strong collaborations, for instance, with the University Blockchain Research Initiative, which is one-in-a-kind initiative funded by RIPO, spreading across 54 different research laboratories around the world, alongside with different European projects focused on the creation of standards around blockchain education. And from that close work with all these different collaborators, and from my own experience as a researcher and as a professor, I know how crucial dialogue and collaboration are. And this is not just nice to have in our field. That's actually what helps us move forward. And this is precisely the motivation and the driving force behind the organization of this Blockchain Research Summit. And because there is this incredible research, and you're going to hear from Atharva and Vito afterwards, happening in cryptography, in AI, in distributed systems. There is this incredible business building on the XRP Ledger happening simultaneously to that. And those two worlds will be able to meet throughout these 2 days and hopefully start a new collaborative experience together. So that's the first objective, is to create space for a researcher working on zero knowledge proof who will share their paper in the morning, to sit in the same table with someone who can implement those ideas on a live network in the afternoon. So that's one of the first objective. The summit is structured around 5 working group sessions, which have been identified in a collaborative academic insights that we also organize at XRPL Commons. So these are topics such as interoperability. We have our own research assistant working on that. Security, an AI led by Vito, that you're going to hear from a little bit later. Cryptography, of course, with Trinity College and University of Trento. A compliance and digital competitiveness working group led by the NATPA network. And these topics we will be able to discuss, but also to come as an objective with some key takeaways and next stops, which afterwards will be co-edited and published in an open manual, so more people can benefit from these interactions. But also, it's important for us that this is just the beginning of the discussion. It's not the end. We're also look further ahead by seeing what are the funding opportunities and what is the future of the European and global blockchain research, in the sense that what is expected from the industry, from the regulators, and how the research community can actually fit into this gap, and all these stakeholders could work together in order to achieve that. So I would say the summit is not a final stop. It's a destination that we are all hoping to kick off. And of course, we've been inspired by others who have been doing that in the space, like, as I said, the UBRI network, for instance. And we hope that the European and global research community will be able to find their place, feel confident, and contribute as much as they can in this endeavor. And I would like to thank everyone who confirmed and who come from very different points around the world to join us. And for all the people who are listening, there's still some spots, so you can join us as well.
Thank you, Vera. And I love the idea of the summit not being just like one of these usual conferences where you go, you might take notes, talk to people, but then, there's no real takeaways. Like, I think the way it's kind of set up is really to engage people to contribute and to come to actually leave the room with a concrete product, which I think then can, be worked on further and can kick off these working groups to exist for a long time and just facilitate research in general. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be also helping out with the manual as a publication. So yeah. Uh, so let's turn to Atharva. So hi Atharva, it's really nice to see you.
Hey Zsofi, how's it going? Thanks for having me here.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so obviously, like for me, it's so interesting to see your journey because the first time we've met, it was more than a year ago at Trinity College when you were giving a research presentation just before one of our meetups, actually, our first ever meetup in Dublin. Last year, and yeah, I saw you then, and then I saw you multiple times since then, since you've become quite involved with other community and research initiatives. So, yeah, can you tell us a bit about your journey since then and how you became involved with different initiatives and how that kind of like influenced your journey as a researcher?
Yeah, well, it all started with my master's thesis, where my main goal was to find out if we can actually make XRPL quantum safe. At that time, I had zero knowledge or like no knowledge about C++, XRPL, or how blockchain systems work. So I was that guy who would come early into the lab and then just keep on working till the closing staff arrived later on in the evening. Then, as I was getting better, I tried different approaches, architectures, but it was just not happening. I was stuck somewhere. I was very close, but yet very far away. I remember this was my 71st architecture, and if that did not work, then I was going to tell my professor that, look, I'm not capable for this job. I don't think I can do it. But fortunately, the cards were in my favor, and it actually worked. And then suddenly I realized that I had made the first post-quantum prototype of XRPL. And that was the beginning. And then I was invited to XRPL Apex last year in Singapore to present about this project. That's when I met a lot of people in the field, especially XRPL Commons team as well, and realized that I had became part of something big. Um, Also, being able to impact the industry was now the main goal of mine. And ever since then, I had been researching, making protocols, writing papers, making applications, and so on. And also, I would like to say that one of the most learning experiences I had was literally last month during the Hack the Block hackathon by XRPL Commons. As that's where being a mentor and a judge allowed me to listen to all sorts of ideas, hackers, experts, and living with some of them during my tenure was really a truly learning experience, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite a journey.
Yeah.
You also participated in the core developer bootcamp
Yeah.
in Paris. So that was last summer.
Yeah.
How was that experience like?
So this was, I would say this would be a follow-up after my Apex. And then I realized that, okay, um, I've done something. Now I need to like let other people know. And the bootcamp was the perfect way to kind of teach other people what I had done myself. So it would kind of save their time as well to make this. And with help of Dennis, he just organized that so well. And then I gave a lecture on the underlying mathematics of quantum algorithms and how we would be able to withstand attacks done by quantum computers on XRPL if Q day ever happens. So yeah.
Thank you. And turning now to Vito, I'm also, yeah, I've seen you kind of like grow in this ecosystem in the past years, and you come from a research background, but now you're also working at Ripple. And yeah, can you maybe share a bit more about your path and research background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is computer science, and when before joining Ripple, before starting my PhD, I was a software engineer working on so kind of set of problems that are called routing problems. Basically, how what is the most optimal way to deliver food to your door? And it was just through sheer happenstance that I ended up at the University of Luxembourg doing a PhD. Um, the initial topics that I was interested had nothing to do with blockchain. It was primarily about networking. How do we make computers, talk to each other more efficiently? How do we make systems more robust? Things like that. At the time, my lab was funded through, or I think it still is, funded through the University Blockchain Research Initiative. And because of that, the blockchain was a very hot discussion, at the time. And it really piqued my interest because it is blockchain sits at this intersection of many different topics of computer science. You have distributed systems, you have consensus algorithms, cryptography, very complex data structures. It all comes to a lot of this very hard theory that is taught through all university curriculums. It comes to materialize as a real software, real system, and blockchain. So that's really how I got it started in the scene, and the end of the result of that is I think for the time being I'm the only holder of a PhD. Where in the thesis of my title there's XRP Ledger. So that's kind of my claim to fame, and from there, kind of the path I'd say naturally went to Ripple, because this is the place where a lot of the XRP Ledger software is still developed. A lot of protocols are designed and implemented, and I'd say a lot of hard problems are being solved. So it's kind of found my own niche there.
And would you say that there are some problems that you are currently working on, or any of kind of like the research topics that are influencing your work at the moment? And could you give us some concrete examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two main strands of work that I'm particularly focused and interested in these days. So on one hand, we have DeFi protocols. So I'm working. I have designed and helped implementing the XRP Ledger lending protocol, which is a stack of these two different systems that allow to originate loans on XRP Ledger. And this is very interesting. I find very interesting intersection of financial research and computer science, in a sense that we are not inventing lending. We are not creating new ways, let's say new mathematics to do lending. It is a lot of off the shelf, a lot of very well established protocols, very well established systems from the traditional finance. What makes it particularly tricky for blockchain is that there are a lot of trust assumptions. There are a lot of assumptions how finance works baked into the traditional lending, right? And so translating these assumptions into blockchain For example, that a lender might, if a lender disappears in traditional finance, there are a lot of systems in place to make sure that the borrower will be made whole, and the same vice versa. If the borrower suddenly disappears, there are legal frameworks, there are things that can be done to provide safety nets to all the parties involved. In DeFi, these don't necessarily exist. So the protocols have to be designed in such a way to provide a safety guarantees to all parties involved. Whereas what we ended up doing on XRP Ledger is taking a more of a traditional approach of saying, well, this protocol is designed for use cases where the lenders are trusted authorities, they are established players, so they can be trusted off chain, which opens up a lot of different design decisions, and it makes the system more suitable for kind of institutional applications. So that's one hand. On the other hand, with the proliferation of large language models and so-called vibe-coded systems, one question that keeps popping up across industry, and this is not necessarily related to blockchain, is how do we make sure that software we are creating is correct? And since large language models are notoriously known for hallucination, we're actually seeing that the quality of the code that is being produced is slowly declining. There are more bugs, there are more things that are simply missed by these models. And so the question is, since large language models are here to stay, in what shape, in what form, how they're going to contribute to software engineering, there's a lot of debate, there are a lot of questions around that. But I think one thing is clear, this technology will not go away. So how do we make sure that the software that is created is correct? And so what we are looking at is, there's a field of computer science called formal verification. In essence, that involves providing mathematical guarantees about software correctness. So the question we're exploring is the question we're exploring through UBRI initiative, through partnerships with other companies, is how do we apply formal verification in a way so that we can provide guide rails for large language models to make sure that the software they create is correct and safe. Yeah, so these are kind of the two main branches that I'm exploring these days.
Quite big topics. I love how you describe both. I think it was quite interesting. Both. I come from more like a political science and social science background, and I think actually both issues you raised have relevance in those fields too. Like the first one, how you translate like a traditional aspect of finance into a completely new decentralized system, and how you set that up, how you set that structure up will impact all the transactions and thereby how like society exchanges. And then the second one as well with AI, obviously, like impacting every single thing we do right now. And yeah, I feel like this aspect sometimes gets lost in the discussions of like how do we actually make sure that it does things correctly. And we can see the impact of that in almost every field, like both the good and the kind of improving accessibility to things such as, like now even I can create an app or vibe code something in a couple of hours. But then how do we go from there? And like what's going to be like the long-term future implications of that? So yeah, super interesting topics. I'll come back to you, Vito, in a second. But now let's turn to Atharva, because Atharva, you're also working on extremely interesting topics such as privacy and zero-knowledge proof solutions. So can you tease us a little bit, because I know you're going to present these at the Blockchain Research Summit. So can you share a little bit, but not spoil the entire thing for those who are also attending the summit?
Yeah, sure. I'll make it quick because you'll be hearing more about these next week. So,
no need to be quick, but just, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are building two applications. The first one which we have built is called ZK Ballot, which is a online e-voting platform built on the Zcash blockchain, which is known for its zero knowledge capabilities. From a user's or a voter's perspective, what happens is you receive a link on your email, and then you just click on vote, and then you click on the candidate which you want to vote. After that, that's it. That's literally all the interface from the user's perspective. The magic happens in the backend. In this way, we are able to achieve a completely private yet verifiable voting system. Everyone can view that a vote has happened, but they won't be able to view who voted who. So on the back end, what happens is a vote is basically one Zcash token, and everyone gets a wallet assigned to them with one token inside their wallet. And they would be selecting the candidate's address when they click on the vote, and the token transfer happens. And we have made it in such a way that the transaction of who voted to what candidate is not visible, but you can still see the number of votes the candidate received. So in this way, the privacy is preserved, but it still can be verified if needed to do so. We've also observed the problem of a person voting multiple times in certain elections. With zero knowledge, you have this concept of nullifiers, which basically allow you to, or doesn't allow you to do a transaction more than once. So in this way, the double voting problem is also solved. So that's the beauty of zero knowledge. Let me talk to you about the second application which we have built, which is one of our most recent applications, which is online and free to use. We are just waiting for the feedbacks of all the early users to make it better and better. It is called InvisiCrypt, meaning invisible encryption. It's very easy to guess. It is an online LaTeX editor used for writing documents, and majority of the researchers use this to write their papers, notes, or thesis, and so on. The problem with the current LaTeX editors out there is the document is never encrypted when it is passed through the servers. So let's say there's a bad employee working in that company. He would be able to view your last or most recent save in plain text format. And not to mention now the AI agents also somehow get their hands on these because they want to satisfy their user with the most appropriate answer. So they don't know when to stop or where is the borderline that this is where I need to stop because this thing has not been published yet. Hence, it is not official. So imagine you write a paper, you spend a year or so doing all the experiments and everything, and it's just the conclusion section which is left, and you decide, okay, I'll probably write it tomorrow. That's when I did a lot of work. I'll have it a rest. And someone takes your paper, since it's available there on plain text, and gets it out, writes the conclusion, and submits it to a conference. Now, since they submitted it before you cannot prove them that, okay, this work was actually done by me. So this is where InvisiCrypt comes into picture. every single keystroke which you type on the editor is encrypted locally on your device and then passed on to the servers. So the servers would only see a ciphertext or a blob coming in later on, which can be only decrypted and downloaded by your collaborator's private key. So it works on encryptions between multiple users or like collaborators, should I say. So in this way, the privacy is kind of preserved using the encryption. The servers would also always read the ciphertext, and the collaborators would also get your recent changes. So this kind of solves everyone's problems. And the vision we have for InvestCrypt is this is just one of the applications which we are planning to which we have built. We plan to have a whole ecosystem of different documents, storage applications, etc. Everywhere where storage is involved, we plan to encrypt it and then pass it on to the servers. So yeah, these are the two applications which I would be talking in detail next week.
Wow, super interesting. Again, really like real world applications that are like blockchain is capable of, solving or at least bringing us closer to a solution.
Yeah.
I also, one of our magazines we did 2 years ago was focused on intellectual property. And I think that's super relevant as well to the second project you just presented. This idea with like an ability, an increasing inability to prove that something was actually done by us, created by us. And it's exactly solutions like that that can help us in that way. And just to clarify for the privacy solution, with this encryption, would that also provide like a tool against AI agents to access your documents?
So it is one of the future directions which we are working on at the moment. And again, as more users use it, more questions would arise, and this would result in us actually making the application better. So we are just like waiting for the feedback, and hopefully we keep on making the application better and better every day.
And so right now, is it who can actually test this solution?
Oh, everyone. So you can just go on to newscript.com and make a file and try to use it and see it for yourself. Right now it's free to use with infinite collaborators. So if you want to do your thesis or assignments, this is a free to use platform.
Amazing. I'll ask you after this live to maybe put the link as well in the comments of this video so people can access it. Nice. I'm really excited for next week to hear more about these topics. Vito, I had a follow-up question to you about the lending protocol. Obviously, it's a topic you've been working on for a long time now. And for those who are kind of confused about what this is or like how does the process actually look like, can you also tell us more from the practical side? Like how is like an amendment like this created? Like what were the steps you went through, broadly speaking, when it comes to the lending protocol?
Yeah. So for developing features within, for XRP Ledger, for in any commercial software, everything starts with a product requirements document. Basically, look, we want to create this product. This product solves this problem. We accept. We anticipate. We'll target such and such users. Basically, it is a problem statement. And then what we do as engineers is take that requirements document and convert it into a specification for XRP Ledger. So in essence, how do we answer the question of what system will solve the problems that are outlined in the requirements document? We think about things like, well, how will users interact with it? How will users try to exploit it? What are our safety requirements? What are our security requirements? What are our trust assumptions? All of that is then represented in the design, in the so-called XLS of a protocol. So basically, what we're saying is that, well, to the XRP Ledger, we are introducing these new objects that will represent the state of the lending protocol. Users will be able to interact with these objects using these transactions. Here, these are our kind of safety measures to ensure the protocol is correct, it doesn't break anything, and so on and so forth. Because a very interesting challenge that comes to specifically designing protocols for XRP Ledger is that a lot of other blockchains are smart contract based. What that means is that different protocols in the system, they are isolated from each other. So a vulnerability, a bug in one smart contract does not necessarily mean it will affect another protocol. On XRP Ledger, everything is at layer 1. So it means that lending protocol interacts with IOUs, it interacts with MPTs, it interacts with all sorts of compliance features, permissioning, and so on and so forth. So when we're designing the system, we also need to account for everything else that is out there. And a lot of edge cases, a lot of time is really spent on how things can go wrong when these two systems that were designed completely separately from each other, what can go wrong when these two systems will start interacting, and how do we preempt that? So once we did our job, once we did our research, once we did our designs, XLSs, this is when software engineering, software development starts. I might be presenting it as a very waterfall approach. We first do the requirements, then we do the specification, then we do the implementation testing. It is not that clear cut. It is a very, very iterative process. I think we went through about 3 or 4 different designs for the lending protocol until we landed on the one that we have today. Because we start implementing it and we actually see, well, hey, actually we did not consider this constraint of the blockchain itself. We have not considered this technical constraint. So then we have to go back to the drawing board and iterate and iterate and iterate. Once we have the protocol developed, this is where we start a testing period, the testing phase. So these are hackathons, these are external audits, these are internal tests, performance tests, compliance tests, all sorts of steps taken to ensure that the system is as safe and secure as possible. We are taking it, we're even taking it up a notch. So I briefly mentioned that we're looking at exploring at formal verification. So what we're doing for lending protocol is that we are retroactively taking the code and formally verifying it. What it means in reality is that the way the software is tested is experts with domain knowledge think of ways that people might interact with the system. They execute those ways and see, well, does the system perform as I expected, or does something break? If something breaks, there's a bug, we fix the bug and iterate. The challenge with this approach is that it requires, it's really like sampling. I try this, works, doesn't work. I try this, works, doesn't work. I try that, works, doesn't work, right? And the limitation is that, well, it's a very creative process. And perhaps the person who wants to exploit the system is a little bit more creative than I am. Especially today, when we can apply large language models to do a lot of this grunt work, it brings the question again of, well, how do we ensure that system is correct? And this is where formal verification comes in. Rather than doing discrete sampling of various things that can be done to the system, formal verification provides us, like I mentioned, mathematical guarantees. Basically, it gives us a proof saying that something will always or something will never happen. And then with these proofs, we have very, very real, very strong guarantees about correctness aspects of the system. Of course, standard testing and formal verification, they're not mutually exclusive. They're complementary. There's no silver bullet, and this should not be taken as such. But it is rather a way to identify a set of a category of bugs that with standard testing is much more difficult to identify. Yeah, and so once we are confident with our software correctness, we think, okay, we did everything we can. We release it, and this is when it comes on chain, ready for the validators to vote. Validators do their due diligence. They verify the software. They look at it to determine, okay, are we voting it in or are we not yet? And once it's voted in, then the protocols are available on chain for people to use. So that is kind of a very high overview of the whole process, from how do we go from an idea to an executable system that everyone can use.
And for the lending protocol specifically, where is this process right now?
For lending protocol specifically, it is already available for voting. There is a testnet, devnet. There's a separate side chain where this protocol is already enabled, so people can experiment with it, can start building on it so that once it's voted in on the mainnet, they can hit the ground running.
Amazing. And yeah, I totally get that when it's presented like that, it can seem like a super linear process, but in reality, it's like a back and forth between these steps until it's finally live. So yeah, super interesting. And thank you for providing really the detailed steps. I think it's very insightful for the community as well. So just from a different perspective, Atharva, you've met so many people as well in this past year, and especially during your hackathon experience as a mentor and judge. This is one of my final questions, and Vito, actually, you can answer this question too if you would like. Have you kind of like noticed a gap in blockchain research or an area that is kind of like coming up based on the discussions you've had recently?
So I think this is something which we notice at any blockchain event. The conversations happening between like-minded people definitely do change the way how I think about these research problems. Someone may have already attempted an approach which you are probably thinking right now. So if you have the conversation, then they would definitely save you your time. And if there's any gaps in the research problems, I think the biggest gap or more research required in this particular thing is to find a balance between privacy and transparency. Because earlier on, blockchain was known because it's transparent, it's publicly verifiable. Anyone can see who transferred how much to whom. But now you see loads of rise in this demand of blockchain should be private. So users need privacy. Providers need like accountability, and um, compliance as well. These sort of discussions I do with people in these events really kind of help me identify different demands needed by different companies, and to see how nuanced these trade-offs really are. If you take XRPL for an example, it is a challenge to introduce privacy to a blockchain which was meant to be public in a way. One of the biggest research opportunities I see would be in the banking sector right now. Bankings are on the verge of adopting blockchain technologies, but that still requires more research in terms of interoperability, privacy-preserving technologies, and I would say regulatory-friendly architecture. Then you also have this post-quantum cryptography. For now, I think we are on the right track when it comes to implementing these post-quantum schemes on blockchains. But the next area of research would be how we can make them faster. Because it would be a huge difference in the speeds if we don't improve the latency of the post-quantum. I think right now we are, let me give it an example. The first model of plane as versus the planes we see right now, there's huge difference between two. Both serve the same purpose. So I think right now we're on that first plane when it comes to post-quantum cryptography. But surely since someone has done it now, it would not take us long to improve that and take it even further to next level. Yeah. That's from my side. Vito.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Vito, if you have any comments on Atharva's thoughts or adding your other ideas as well.
That is a very exhaustive list. One thing that I think I need to mention as kind of my personal opinion is that I think there is a lot of research that is done for the sake of research, which is a wonderful thing in its own. But a lot of the solutions that are being found, what I find that they're missing is, well, how do we ground this in real applications? How might an actual user, institution, a bank, adopt this work so that it can benefit them tomorrow? Is a protocol, for, let's say, for example, for XRP Ledger, is this protocol really viable for today's applications? Or is it a novel idea, but unfortunately without a practical application? As kind of research direction, I think so. There's a growing interest, and there's a lot. We're seeing a lot of people, a lot of companies creating proof of concepts of how do we do micropayments for large language models. So the premise is fairly simple. Let's say I create my custom large language model that is very, very good at XRP Ledger. It is the de facto expert, and I want to monetize that model. So when a customer uses Claude, instead of Claude trying to guess something or have a general knowledge about XRP Ledger, it can go to my expert and have a, let's say, an authoritative answer to whatever question might be arising. And so the question is, well, how can I pay? How can I monetize this interaction between these two models? And one of the applications is blockchain, because blockchain allows us to do micropayments, meaning that instead of sending a cent, I could charge a millionth of a cent per token, per million tokens. or whatever the pricing I might decide. So this would allow model pricing, model marketplaces in a sense. So I think that's kind of a very interesting, very high potency research topic that pertains uniquely to blockchain and LLM interaction.
Great. I think we've mentioned plenty here. I also want to take a second to address a question that came in from the audience to Atharva regarding InvScript. So just a follow-up clarification question. Do you pass that doc through a bucket, or do you store the doc in an encrypted vault so the agent can have access? I've worked on something similar where we encrypt and parse the data on the doc and pass the info into a secure vault.
So I would say that we would not store a doc in a secured encrypted vault. We would encrypt the doc and then store that on the server. So in this way, whoever has access to the servers would only see a blur or like just a ciphertext coming in, which they have no idea of what to make of. And that can only be decrypted by me or the collaborators of my document. So I think in this way, we kind of secure the data, and which would only be seen by people who are like intended for that data to see. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Also, sorry, one more thing. Well, like we have a detailed document of how InvScript works because it is one-of-a-kind application. So I'm pretty sure there's like tons of questions around this technology, this underlying principles. So if people just go on invscript.com and just try and use and read the documents, then I think they would be much more clear in terms of how the application works.
Awesome, thanks a lot. And we brought back Vera into the discussion as well. Hi, Vera, again. What are your thoughts, having listened to this discussion for the past half an hour or an hour?
Oh, well, I'm very impressed always by Atharva and Vito. They managed to put me in a plane and literally transport me into the new dimension. I like the metaphor that you used, Atharva. I think, well, what can I say? If you want to participate in the making of the next level of this technology and moving real problems to real applications and responding to more real cases and problems that we face, please join us. The next research summit will be really a place for both PhD students who are carrying the latest innovations to showcase their work. It will be a platform for regulators like Inadba and Mika Crypto Alliance to talk to these who are building the solutions and try to see what regulatory framework we should put in place in order to ensure privacy and security, as you both mentioned earlier, which are two very important topics. It will also be there to place for all the who are not yet were challenged by how to teach the question, who want to get trained. And we're going to most probably give a little doing a teaser now here, a little demonstration of an upcoming XRPL Academy that we're also working internally at XRPL Commons, and maybe test with the people who are in the room a special learning path that we have designed specifically for the academic community. So looking forward to see you all in person. I hope the discussion today was useful to everyone who was online, and we're always there for you and the whole community. And thank you very much for giving us this opportunity today to reach out.
Yes, and thank you, Atharva and Vito, as well, for answering all my questions and letting me pick your brain about these topics. So if you want to do the same, then come to the Blockchain Research Summit and ask follow-up questions to Vito, Atharva, and many other also amazing people in the room. So thank you very much for today. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you have any questions, you can reach out to XRPL Commons, and hope to see you next week in person.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
See you.